Over 25 years ago, Honda introduced the first ever CR-V, which stood for Comfortable Runabout Vehicle. It was a huge success for the company, with Honda moving over 300,000 CR-Vs in the US every year. So for the all-new 6th generation, the company didn't want to mess too much with that successful formula, so we have an updated platform, updated powertrains, new styling on the outside that definitely makes it a lot more butch, and a redesigned interior with far better tech. So to drive this all-new 2023 CR-V EXL, I'm actually out here just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and the big question I want answered: does the new 2023 CR-V represent one of the best choices out there if you're looking for a right-sized family vehicle? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we get into the new styling of the all-new 6th generation CR-V, I want to show you guys what's underneath the hood. Now, unlike the previous generation, Honda has added struts, so you don't have to deal with a prop rod. And today I'm only going to be showing you guys the EXL trim. There's going to be a separate review that we're going to be driving for the Sport Hybrid trim sometime in October, but this is the model that has the gas engine. The EX and the EXL only comes with a revised version of the 1.5 liter direct injection VTEC turbocharged engine. This engine we've seen in the previous generation CR-V since 2017. The numbers are the same this year: 190 horsepower and 179 pound-feet of torque. Honda says that they've made some small tweaks to the engine where the torque figure now arrives 300 RPM sooner. They've also made some tweaks to the CVT, so it's a little bit smoother, it's a little bit more responsive. We'll talk about that when we get this vehicle out on the road. Now, sadly, Honda didn't have too many specs available. I don't know the fuel economy figures, nor do I know the towing figure of this gas engine. The hybrid, however, will tow a maximum of 1,000 pounds. The previous generation CR-V got 2732 with all-wheel drive. I expect this car to stay roughly the same because this new version here is bigger and it's most likely going to be heavier as well. In terms of 0 to 60 performance, we've brought our timing equipment here. We'll go ahead and we'll test that out when we get this out on the road. And like I said earlier, I don't have the curb weight figures or the towing. I'm going to estimate this car will probably be around 1,500 pounds to tow and maybe around 3,700 pounds for curb weight. But once we have that information, we'll go ahead and we'll update that in the specs. But for now, Honda didn't really have too much information on the new CR-V on the exact specifications for this car. But let's go ahead and close the hood and talk about the exterior styling, because Honda lately has been trying to kind of butch up the SUV design language of their newest models. We saw it first on the HR-V, and now for the CR-V, we're seeing a totally new look here that kind of brings it more in line with like a miniaturized Passport or Pilot, which I think is kind of a good thing. The old CR-V and the generation before it kind of had always frumpy looks to me, especially with the grille. I really like what Honda has done here with the new styling language. You can see the grille is large. It's got this chrome strip that goes through the headlights. All CR-Vs now come standard with full LED headlights. You can see there's an LED turn signal, LED low and high beams. No fog lights on this trim, however. And if you guys go for the Sport or Sport Touring, the front fascia is different. There's a different finish in the grille, and you have kind of like these almost exhaust tips at the front of the vehicle on the Sport and Sport Touring. The EXL, you can see, it's just a little bit more plain Jane. You do have parking sensors, nicely integrated ones at the front. And overall, I like how Honda has given full LED headlights as standard. The previous generation, you had to buy the Touring trim to get the LED headlights, so it's nice that they're at least including that tech. Now, looking at the rest of the side profile here, you can see it's definitely got a more boxier shape, but it's also still instantly recognizable as a CR-V. This is still riding on a modified version of the Honda Global architecture, the same one that underpins the new Civic, so which means you have a four-wheel independent suspension. You also have availability of all-wheel drive. This car has about 8.2 inches of ground clearance, which is the same as the previous generation. That's for all-wheel drive. A front drive model will give you around 7.9 inches. The one thing I don't like about this trim here, this is the EXL. It's one step below the Sport Touring, and look at these wheels. These are an 18-inch silver finish wheel riding on 235/60 series tires. They kind of scream cheap to me. They scream like you should have spent a little bit more money to get better wheels. The Sport has a black 18-inch wheel, and the Sport Touring has a 19-inch black wheel, which I just think looks a lot better. These are going to be good if you guys are favoring ride quality. You want a more affordable tire when it comes time to replace the tires. You can see it's an SUV, so you have the gray plastic cladding along the side and the lower front side skirt of this vehicle. And then in terms of the overall length, Honda did lengthen this car by about 2.7 inches at 184.8 inches long. It's longer than most of the competitors now. Its wheelbase is now 106.7 inches long as well. It's about 1.6 inches longer. And it's also wider. The new CR-V is almost a half an inch wider, which is going to give us a little bit more in terms of interior space. You can see the EXL includes this turn signal mirror. There's also a sunroof at the top. All CR-Vs actually come standard with a sunroof now. Even the base base version, the base EX, because there's no LX trim. The one thing, however, you cannot get is a panoramic roof. There's also no roof rails on this model here. I'm not entirely sure if Honda's going to offer that as an accessory, but I do know that the Sport Touring go ahead and gives you those aerodynamic roof rails. At the back, you can see the design language is instantly recognizable as a CR-V. You have these kind of Volvo-inspired taillights. Some of you have compared it to a Volvo XC60. You can see the taillights are an LED design. However, the turn signal is incandescent. That is a downgrade versus the previous generation and the current generation HR-V, which has LEDs for the rear turn signals, which is a little bit surprising. There's a very small all-wheel drive sticker here underneath the rear wiper, and then you can see the badging is very minimalistic back here. There's no EXL badge. If you do have a hybrid model, it will say Sport Touring Hybrid on the back to show people you have the higher end. And then you can see here, no visible exhaust tips. The bumper down here is all plastic, which is going to be good for those of you who plan to get this really beat up and scratched up. This is going to be a family vehicle. There are still those nicely integrated parking sensors as well. And then when it comes to the cargo area, the CR-V's always excelled at that, and it has one of the lowest load floors in terms of the cargo space. Now, back here, you're gonna get around 33 cubic feet of space. You can actually take this out, put it on a lower position, that'll expand it out to 39 cubic feet of space, which makes it among the best in the segment. And then Honda sadly does not offer releases back here, but you can still kind of reach this and fold this over, which is kind of a far reach for somebody like my height. But once you fold that down, there's several locking positions, so yes, once you fold down these seats, it expands it out to 76.5 cubic feet of space. Now I want you to notice something. The floor is not completely flat. There is a little bit of a hump up there as it rises up. So it may, hinder for some of you who need to actually get a completely flat load floor, but you should know this is still one of the largest cargo areas in the segment. So now let's talk about the interior of the all-new 6th generation CR-V. Now, first of all, this EXL that I'm showing you guys has the radiant red on the exterior with this kind of gray interior. This is one of the few colors that offers the gray interior. Honda offers like a black interior option, but it's either gray or black. So I kind of wish Honda offered a little bit more in terms of color choices, but getting in and shutting the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, and you can see here the instrument panel and everything is very similar to the new Civic, the new HR-V. So for those of you who have been in those latest Hondas, this is going to feel pretty familiar. Now, here's the key fob for the car. You can see it's their newest Honda intelligent key with remote start. Every CR-V comes with push button start and this intelligent key because there is no more base LX trim. So once you get in, the button here to fire up the engine is right here. And you can hear it sounds like every other Honda. It has the same chime. It has the new digital display here where it's kind of a half digital, half analog. The tach and the left side is actually digital, and the speedometer there is just a traditional analog speedometer. Honda does not offer the full digital display that you find in the new Civic, for example, which is interesting that they're not offering that in the CR-V. But you can see here this EXL, unlike the EX that I was in last month, you can see it has a leather wrapped wheel. It has a leather interior. The driver's seat is an 8-way power driver's seat with 2-person memory. So it's nice that Honda is putting that on the EXL. You don't have to go for the Sport Touring to get the 2-person memory. Even the EX, however, will have an 8-way power driver's seat, while the EX and the Sport will have a manual power seat. This is a 4-way power passenger seat on the EXL and on the Sport Touring. And these seats here are also heated. Every CR-V will come standard with heated seats, even the base EX, along with this sunroof. So Honda's really thrown in a lot of features into this car to make it more enticing for those of you who want those extra nice touches. Now, in terms of the steering wheel here, you can see it's a tilt and telescoping design. Offers a good amount of adjustability with the range. The horn, oh my God, sounds so puny. I really don't like the horn, but hey, maybe it's something you can change in the aftermarket. In terms of the materials, you can see the dash has a soft touch injection molded plastic. You have this kind of interesting textured black trim here where it's plastic. It actually has like a hexagonal texture. The windows are one touch automatic for the front and for the back. So the EXL trim gives you one touch for all 4, which is nice. The sound system in this vehicle is an 8-speaker Honda Premium sound system. You can see it's got the tweeters over there. If you guys want the Bose stereo system, you have to go for the Sport Touring. That upgrades you to 12 speakers and a little bit more of a better sound quality. Again, you have to go for the highest trim to get that. The EXL at least includes the 9-inch touchscreen here, and in terms of the dashboard, you can see it's a soft touch injection molded plastic for basically the upper portion here. Down here, it's even soft touch, which is nice. You have this kind of hexagonal or metal look for the dash vent, where it kind of creates one look, but there's actually 3 separate vents in here with the same kind of clicky, high quality control vents here to control the airflow for the vents, which is nice. You have also a volume knob here, some traditional buttons, and you can see here my phone is paired up. This has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If you guys go for the EX or the Sport trim, you'll have the smaller 7-inch screen where you'll have to connect your phone to it because it's not wireless. This screen here I've shown you guys before. It definitely looks better. It's a little bit quicker and snappier. It doesn't have wireless over-the-air updates, but you can get Wi-Fi hotspot on the Sport Touring trim, not on the EXL. And then you also have a wireless phone charging pad, which is nice over here, along with 2 USB, a USB-A and a USB-C charging port, some good storage over here. And then you have dual zone climate control. Only the Sport trim is the one that gives you single zone climate control. All the other trims will have the dual zone setup, which again, these knobs feel really high quality. They also look really good. I like the metal accents to it and whatnot, which is nice. Over here on the center console, you can see this controls your CVT transmission. It has a sport mode, a drive mode, and then an L mode along with the reverse and neutral. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera. The quality is fine, but you can see here with the parking sensors, it makes the screen look pretty small. So I'm surprised that Honda kind of did it that way. It does have rear cross traffic alert. You can kind of change the way the views are. However, if you're looking for a full 360 camera, like some competitors offer, Honda does not offer that even on the highest Sport Touring trim. So again, a couple of features they're missing there. Again, if you're looking for cooled seats, Honda does not offer cooled seats, nor do they offer a panoramic roof or a heads-up display. Again, you can get that on some competitors. When I asked Honda why, they simply said that they just didn't have the demand for it. So that's the reason why they didn't offer those features for it. So I'm guessing if you guys want something like that, you should definitely let your voice be heard and see if Honda will make that adjustment to add those features. Now, over here you can see there's your heated seat button for 3-level heated seats. There is a heated steering wheel available. This model here does not have it. The Sport Touring does. Down here on the center stack, you can see you have an electronic parking brake. You have hill descent control, which is kind of a new feature, along with the drive modes, which have normal, eco, and snow. And then if you guys go for a Sport and Sport Touring, it has a sport mode in the drive mode, which is definitely a nice addition. You can see here, there's brake hold along with the electronic parking brake. Then you have some storage over here with some cup holders. I like the center console here where it's a nice padded armrest. And then if you open this up, you can see it's got a pretty deep storage solution. There's no USB ports in there, no power outlet, no lighting in there, however, so kind of keep that in mind if you're looking for extra premium touches like that. The glove compartment, you can see, is a bin style. It's damped and it's not lined with felt, but it does offer decent storage. There's obviously very good storage in this vehicle. And then above me, you can see there's LED map lighting. And then you can see the sunroof here. It opens up the traditional way, or you can just kind of close the shade if you guys prefer not to have the sun beating down on you. So overall, the interior feels roomy. It's got really comfortable seats, which I really like these redesigned seats. And it has most of the tech that you'd like, but I'm really disappointed that Honda is not offering cooled seats or the option, at least, of a panoramic sunroof. Now, hopping into the back seat of the new CR-V, the first thing I want you to notice, these doors open extremely wide. This is going to be great for those of you who need to get a car seat back here. And the CR-V offers one of the largest back seats in the segment. In fact, because of that wheelbase stretch by 1.6 inches, Honda was able to increase the rear legroom here by 1 inch. So we have 41 inches of legroom, which makes it one of the biggest back seats in the segment. You can see at 5'7", I'm not very tall, but I can kind of get back here, stretch my legs out. The floor is almost completely flat, which is nice. On the Sport Touring trim, you got USB ports, but not on the EXL. And you can see back here, there are some rear seat air vents, which is nice. You have one storage pocket, and then the seat here does recline slightly. It does have a recline. If you use the little lever here, it can actually recline a little bit, or you can also fold it down, which is nice. And then if you fold this down here, you can see there's an armrest with 2 cup holders. There is some map lighting right here, and then you can see the sunroof does take up a little bit of headroom space, but overall, the back seat is definitely one of the largest in the segment. All right, so Rob and I are here at the Nashville Super Speedway where we're getting a really very brief drive of the 2023 CR-V. We'll be actually doing a full drive on the hybrid model at a later date. Honda is saying sometime in October, but this is the model that's actually going to show up in dealerships first. It's supposed to show up as early as next month in September. So this is the EXL trim, which is 1 notch below the Sport Touring, which means we have the 1.5 liter turbo engine as standard. It's technically unchanged in power output versus the previous generation. However, Honda has tweaked the torque so it arrives a little bit earlier. They've also revised the CVT so it's a little bit smoother. But let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. It's in sport mode for the transmission. We'll brake torque it. It still fakes the shifts. 9.1 seconds. That seems a lot slower than I remember. Yeah, because I think, Rob, for the first generation, or the previous gen, those were like 7.2 7.7. So I'm actually a little surprised. That was with it going slightly downhill.
It may not have liked you brake torquing it, but it felt strong right off the line, but then it seemed to be like...
yeah, so maybe we'll try one more time there, but 9.1 is pretty sluggish. I'm actually surprised by it. Now, this one that we're driving is a very early pre-production car, so it's possible that maybe the full production car will feel a little bit faster, but 0 to 60 time isn't why you buy a car like this. You don't buy this car to go drag racing. And the new CR-V, as we come onto this like twisty back road here, it still rides on the Honda Global architecture. That's the same one that underpins the new 11th Gen Civic. Honda has made some slight tweaks here to make the structure a little bit stiffer. They've tweaked the suspension, the steering. This car is also a half an inch wider almost. It's almost 3 inches longer in overall length, and the CR-V still drives nice. The steering has pretty good heft to it. The car, I want to say, actually does feel bigger than the last CR-V that I drove. I'm actually kind of... they actually don't have the weight for us yet. The old CR-V model that we're driving here would have been around 3,500 pounds. I'm going to say this feels heavier for sure, but we don't have the final weight, we don't have final fuel economy figures yet, nor do we have final towing. So a little bit disappointing that Honda doesn't have those figures for us yet, but you can feel here the CVT is definitely responsive. Honda does a really good CVT. And the engine, I want to say, is a little smoother. It still gets a little buzzy at the high revs.
It feels good though for passing power.
It does, it does. But let's go ahead and try one more time here, 0 to 60. I'm not going to brake torque it this time. We're just going to floor it.
It was less aggressive.
Definitely feels slower.
We're going uphill here too, I think.
9.9 there. So yes, we are going slightly uphill this time. So
when it shifted the second, the RPMs dropped a little bit after it found that ratio. That was kind of strange. I don't know, it's acting a little bit strange.
Well,
chip shortage.
it's supposed to technically do the fake shifts, but I mean, again, you don't buy CR-Vs to go drag racing. Should I go left or right?
Either way, it doesn't matter. I mean,
But in normal everyday driving, you can kind of hear the CVT does its job just fine. I mean, I had it in sport mode there. We'll just put it into regular drive here instead. Yes, there's a very damaged Dodge Avenger that just drove by. But here back into regular drive mode, the transmission doesn't want to stay in it wants to go into a lower ratio to save fuel. So it's not quite as noisy in this mode, which is the mode that most people are going to be driving it in. And the car feels good. It's a very refined car. The ride quality is good. It's still relatively sporty. It just kind of feels like a bigger version of the HR-V to me, but it does have better power. I mean, the HR-V had the naturally aspirated 2-liter, which was just gutless. This car doesn't necessarily feel gutless in around town driving for me. It just kind of feels gutless when you are doing a 0 to 60 test on it, but it's going to be fine for most people. This is definitely better versus the base engine that's in the RAV4, the naturally aspirated engine. Now, for those of you who prefer a stepped automatic, the RAV4 has an 8-speed auto versus the CVT in this car. But you know, people in this class, I don't really think they're going to notice too much. You just want to know is the transmission responsive enough, which I've put my foot down. It's relatively responsive. The engine has a little bit less vibration, but anytime you kind of push the throttle or push the revs past 4,000, it's going to feel a little bit of vibration. But other than that, it's perfectly fine. I would definitely consider waiting for the hybrid for those of you who are considering this car, because the hybrid model is going to be standard on the Sport and Sport Touring. That's the more interesting looking car. This EXL looks a little bit plain, especially with these silver painted 18-inch wheels. They're just not my cup of tea. They look a little bit too base for me. But in terms of refinement, in terms of comfort, the seats are really comfortable. These redesigned seats, I will say, are really soft. They feel like I could basically drive this car on a longer trip and wouldn't even feel the stiffness of a longer trip, where if you're driving on a 4 or 5 hour road trip. And the visibility in this car is also good. Honda Sensing now comes standard on every trim, which is nice. And then all CR-Vs now have LED headlights. So Honda's really thrown in the features in this car, and the safety tech, which is what we expect in this segment. And I also like how we have a larger 9-inch display with wireless CarPlay on this trim. But if you want the Bose stereo, you have to pony up for the Sport Touring. You get an 8-speaker Honda Premium sound system in this car. Let's hope I make it. 9.1. Very consistent. Consistently slow. Oh boy, hopefully the hybrid is a lot faster than this.
The last 1.5T did it, I think it was a low 8. So it was an 8.2 or something like that. 8.3.
It was pretty quick.
So this one's obviously heavier. It's bigger. Plus, you've got my fat ass.
Oh, well, yes, Rob. You had so much weight.
Yep.
The car.
It's interesting that you said that it feels bigger from the passenger side, like compared to my parents, the previous generation. It feels like it feels more sporty. It feels more nimble to me from this side at least.
I mean, it just feels wider. Like I feel like I'm driving almost like a pilot or a passport. Really? I can feel the extra width of this car. It doesn't feel like as small as the old CR-V did, the last one that I drove. But it's not hard to drive this thing. It's just, you just notice the extra width, I think. So sadly, I was not able to drive the new hybrid version of the CR-V, but after spending a couple of hours driving the EXL version, this is also going to be a very popular trim. With the powertrain, for those of you who want something a little bit more simplified, the base gas engine, which is turbocharged, it is obviously still a great choice in the segment. It's very comfortable on the inside. The seats are among the most comfortable that I've ever felt. It rides and handles just fine, although you definitely feel the fact that this vehicle is a little bit wider and a little bit heavier. Sadly, I don't have the actual curb weight figures of this car just yet. It still feels a little bit on the sportier edge, and it feels definitely better to drive for me versus a gas-powered version of the RAV4. Now, of course, Toyota sells a ton of the RAV4 hybrids, which is a much better option, but this is a great option for those of you who don't want to go hybrid, don't want to go electrified, and just go with a traditional gas-powered vehicle. I am sad about the 0 to 60 time, 9.1 seconds. I'll retest this when I have the vehicle back home for a week and hopefully get a full production version as opposed to this pre-production car. But overall, it's still a great vehicle that has a ton of space in the front and the back, a ton of cargo room, so this is an easy car to live with on a daily basis. Now, speaking of which, if you guys are interested in purchasing the new CR-V, these are heading to dealerships in September. The EX and EXL is going to be in dealerships in September. The Sport and Sport Touring, which is only a hybrid, you're going to have to wait probably until October, November for those models. They're going to be a little bit delayed. And we don't have final pricing just yet for this model, but the old CR-V started at around $27,000 plus destination. That was for the LX trim. Now, because the EX is now the base trim, that's obviously gonna make this car more expensive. So I'm gonna speculate this car is gonna be around $29,000, just under 30 grand for the base EX model with two-wheel drive. Typically, Honda charges like $1,500 if you guys want all-wheel drive on the CR-V. Now, in terms of the hybrid model, I'm still kind of left guessing. That starts at 32 grand for the old one. Probably going to be closer to 34, maybe even 35 for the new version. So only time will tell once Honda announces the pricing. I'm going to suspect this one here that I'm driving will be right around $35,000 with destination all-wheel drive, which again makes the CR-V a little bit more expensive than some competitors, but still a great deal considering all the tech and features that Honda throws in on this new 6th generation. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full first drive overview of the 2023 Honda CR-V EXL. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.